find? So first of all, what happened? And second of all, what did you find?
Okay, so what happened is a hailstorm yesterday in several areas of the coffee park, and it
Right.
was pretty unusual because hailstorms tend to be localized.
Hmm.
So they uh, affect some specific areas, and some unlucky producers uh, have their crop undermined because of them. If they have big ice storms, and what
Hmm.
happened yesterday is we had big ice
Big ice stones. So
storms.
you're saying the hailstones themselves were big. So
Exactly.
number one, normally hailstorms are localized. They might hit a few unlucky producers. That's terrible for them, but it's not usually an indication of a bigger problem in Brazil. But this time it may be a bit different, right? So we have big hailstones, and the area affected was larger than normal. Is that right?
Oh yeah, that's it. And the number of cities kept growing.
Hmm.
We had Poços de Caldas, Muzambinho, some cities near Alta Mogiana, going into the Cerrado, but uh, key areas such as Cerrado and Alta Mogiana, Franca, these cities were not affected,
Okay.
but we have some in the south of Minas and going up towards Cerrado. Uh,
Okay, so let's
and
take a look at a
that,
map. I think you put together a map for
yeah,
us yet, right? We might as well, since
let me
we're on
share
a
my
video
screen
here.
here.
We are going to be going on podcast as well, so we'll describe the areas also. But for those of you who are watching the video, you can take a look here and see what exactly is going on.
These are some of the cities affected.
Hmm.
So I was mapping the cities affected, and the list is long. So I only covered six here. We have Poços de Caldas. We
Okay.
have uh, Montes Claros.
Hmm.
We have, let me see the list here.
See, Uberaba looks like. Um,
Uberaba as well. Uberaba is not a coffee producing region, not North Sacramento, but the intensity was really heavy there as well.
right.
Pedregulho is a city nearby Uberaba, about 70 kilometers, and
Hmm.
it's a coffee city near
Okay.
Franca. It was affected. Poços de Caldas as well, Cabo Verde, Monte
Hmm.
Belo, Campos Gerais, Muzambinho, Monte Carmelo, São Tomás de Aquino, and the list keeps growing.
Right.
So what we're seeing here is are the cities that were mostly affected.
Okay. Let's take a
Uh,
look at that map that you have here. So in this map that you have in the corner here, you can go to the next slide. It looks like the red area is where coffee is grown, right? Those are the coffee
exactly.
regions. And then
Yeah,
you've highlighted in green here the areas that were affected by hail.
exactly. So this green area is likely the areas that are affected by hail. And I made a quick study here to roughly estimate potential impacts in the coffee production. And I separated this in three columns. So we have an
Okay.
optimistic column, a neutral, and a bad column, which would mean a disaster. So we have something between 200,000 bags and going up to 2.7 million bags of potential production loss. So if we average those numbers, we should get in about 1.3 million bags. Now remember that this is just the barely start of cherry growth phase. Chumbinhos are growing.
Right.
Fixation is still taking place. So this is very hard to estimate at this point. But these are some numbers that we can start thinking in the top of our heads.
Mm.
And we also want to dig more into this matter to really discard any cities that are just speculations from the cities that really had hailstorm.
Right.
But this is what we're looking at.
Okay. So basically, just to walk me through your process here, it sounds like what you did was you sort of isolated the regions that were affected by the hailstorm. You looked at what is the total production in those areas, and then you said, okay, in a optimistic scenario, only 1% of the farms were affected. In a
Yeah,
bad scenario, what 30% of the farms were affected, something like that.
exactly.
Okay.
Uh, so we played with percentages there, and how much of production would be cut off from these impacts.
Okay.
So here we're basically playing with these two things: covered area and undermined production.
Okay, great. So obviously this is not good. But to put these numbers in context, we're looking at something like, originally we had been expecting something like a 70 million bag crop in Brazil. We are maybe on the optimistic side. Others are thinking maybe more like a 65 million bag crop coming in the 23-24 crop, right?
Yeah.
So if we consider Brazil as the key factor in whether or not we have a surplus or a deficit in 23-24, then we're talking about shaving off maybe something like 1 million bags. And I think our surplus is probably, I think we're projecting a surplus of between 5 and 8 million bags, something like that. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's about 9 million bags.
9 million bags. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're projecting a surplus of 9 million bags in 23-24, given a 70 million bag crop. So, you know, we could be totally wrong on that. Maybe it's a 65 million bag crop, in which case there would be a 4 million bag surplus, right? And now we're talking about shaving off of that surplus somewhere between a couple 100,000 bags up to 2 or 3 million bags. Worst case scenario, 2 or 3 million bags. Now, I think we chatted a little bit about this before. I kind of dislike, hate is a strong word, but I dislike making, judgments about lost, in quotes, production this far out, because as you said, they're just chubinos at this point. It's so easy to kind of do some hand waving math here and say like, oh, we lost 5 million bags, we lost 3 million bags, whatever. When we don't really have any bags yet. It's all just kind of potential production. So I think what we can say here definitively is this is not good. It's not it's not beneficial for the crop.
Exactly.
But it's hard to say whether it's going to how much of an impact it's going to have at this point. We're going to continue to examine this, do some more research, and talk to people on the ground. But I think this is a good first sort of estimate and way to kind of frame the impact from the hailstorm.